Today, I'm going to be telling you about a project that I've been working on for the last couple of years. It's a project that's supposed to address how we use plastic for one-time purposes a lot, like in packaging. But actually, before I tell you more about the project, I want to tell you a little bit about myself. Because I'm just a father of two, I'm 33 years old, and actually my background, educational background, is in carpentry. And it was only 3 years ago that I was working my 10th year in a kindergarten, and I had set my life up in a way where failing was almost impossible. Because if you don't take any chances, how are you going to fail? But I'm actually lucky enough to have some good people in my life that helped me to take a step out of my comfort zone, which resulted in me applying for the product design program at the Icelandic Academy of the Arts. So when I got accepted into the program, I realized that it had changed drastically over the last 5 or 10 years. So it wasn't exactly what I thought I was applying for. So I had to make a decision. Do I just crawl back to my old job, or do I want to be a part of this new and exciting program that is being developed here? I decided to give it a go. And only a few weeks later, I found myself sitting in a room with 9 other strangers, looking at a teacher with this grin on his face, giving us this extremely vague instruction on a project that we're supposed to hand in only 24 hours. So when he was finished talking, we were left with more questions than answers. And all he did was standing up and leaving the room. So we had some light dialogue and some fairly panicking situation, and realized that all we knew was we were supposed to hand in a project the next day that had to be an object that could only be made out of 2 materials and be at least 25 centimeters high. I decided to go with the first thing that I thought of, which strangely happened to be jelly. So I went to the store and I bought some gelatin and went home and started to try to make my jelly object. And then the next day I found myself sitting at my desk at the studio, having failed miserably. I sat there looking at this giant jelly mess that could maybe amount to like 1 centimeter in height. And I became really scared of failing my first project. So I panicked and I went out and got some tree log and some other stuff, and I made something that at least was 25 centimeters high. So when I handed that in, I realized and I learned a big lesson already, that an interesting failure is always going to be way more exciting and way more valued than a boring success is ever going to be. At that point, we're told that our object didn't really matter at all. We were only picking our 2 materials to work with for the rest of the semester. I was lucky enough to be allowed to go back to my desk and use my jelly as materials. So when I stood there and looking at my mess, I thought, yeah, this could actually just be a lot of fun. But if I would tell you that working with jelly every single day for 3 months is always fun, then I would be lying to you. So I started out looking at the materials, and what I really learned through this whole process was it didn't really matter what materials we started out with. It was just we needed to learn how to trust the process and listen to the materials that we had in front of us and do whatever it took to make it make sense for ourselves. So after some experiments, I decided to change out the gelatin and starting to work with another material that is called agar. It's made out of red algae, and when it's mixed with water, it will make a jello-like substance. And at some point through the process, I decided that I wanted to try to make a water bottle that would be made out of water. So, in the end of the semester, I handed in a project that was a water bottle that could hold water and you could drink from it and it wouldn't fall apart. But that isn't really something special because we have a lot of that already. But what made it interesting was the fact that it only lived as long as it served the purpose. That means if it's filled with water, it will keep its shape, and as soon as you drink from it and it empties out, it will begin to decompose rather quickly. Like you can see in this picture, this is what happens in 1 week at your kitchen table with an empty bottle. And if you don't really want to wait for that, you could also just eat it. But when I had it in the project, I didn't really realize what this project was or what it could become. And it wasn't until I showed it at an exhibition at Design March the next year that I realized that it could be something more. It was when people that hadn't been around it through the whole process came and saw it that you realized they saw way more potential in it than I ever did. And what happens when people see something interesting nowadays is that they want to tell somebody about it. And how do they tell people about it? They go to the internet. And what happens when somebody's talking about your project on the internet is you lose control. And everything begins to move extremely fast. What happened to me was only a few months later, I had met a TV crew from Norway which flew over here to make a TV program about the project. Monday, Sunday morning, my apartment was filled with Japanese TV crew, and now my name is written in an educational book for children in South America, which is crazy, but awesome. But another thing happens when you lose control of how people talk about your project. And I didn't really realize this until I was asked to do this talk. But then, because everything happened so fast, then I finally, when I was asked to do this talk, I finally got the opportunity to sit down and look back and reflect on what had actually happened. And I realized that after reading all these headlines of this Icelandic design student that was saving the world from plastic pollution, it really gets to you. You begin to become afraid of failing these people. You feel like, I have to do what they are saying, and I have to make this project into what they say it is. Who am I to make all these reporters look like liars? But I don't think that's really realistic, and I don't really believe that is what this project is or what it needs. So what do I believe this project needs? Maybe it just needs to be stolen. Because what makes it special is that we can realize that you don't need to be an engineer or a scientist to do this kind of stuff. You can be just an 8-year-old kid making your own water bottle in your kitchen. And it could take you only 5 minutes to make it. And in these 5 minutes, you might actually discover something that makes it much, much better than it already is, and it is something that I would maybe never have thought of. So, for me, the best case scenario for this project would be that everybody would try it. Like everyone steals this project and go home and they try to make their own water bottle. Maybe you just copy the project like it is, or maybe you take something from it and add something else to it, or maybe you just decide to pick the 2 craziest materials that you can think of and try to make something completely different. Maybe you want to make a fork or a cup or a plastic bag. It doesn't really matter. And when you manage to make something that's really interesting, then go and tell your friends about it and challenge them to do it better than you did. And actually, when they do, steal their project and make it better than they did. Then worst case scenario would maybe be that nobody tries it. We all just wait for somebody else to do it for us. But then at least a few people, including myself, got more aware of the problem that plastic pollution is causing in this world. And maybe they changed their daily routines just a tiny little bit to try to make it better. But best case scenario, or worst case scenario, or even just something in between, it doesn't really matter. At least I will never see this project as a failure. I will only see it as 1 or 2 steps in the right direction.